talk about pitching the script. How long were you pitching it? What was the feedback? Did you get kicked around over town? Those types of things.
Well, this isn't something you could ever have pitched. I think that you know, when you pitch something, you haven't written it. You just go in and you talk about it with executives, and you say, "I have this idea to write this story," and it's usually pretty thoroughly beated out. And if I was to tell them, like, so, you know, moves around and they don't end up together, and it's all those things that you're expecting that, you know, doesn't happen. You know, every successful romantic comedy you've ever seen is nothing like those. That would be, they'd kick me right out of there. So I could never have pitched it. But we had the script, and a lot of people read the script, and they really liked it, but nobody really knew what to do with it. I mean, what do you do? Like, and we got really lucky because it sat around for a really long time, and finally Fox Searchlight stepped up and said, all right, we'll option it, and we'll, you know, see if we can figure out what to do in a year. And make it the way I consider the appropriate way, which is cheaply, and, you know, not with stars, but with people who they thought had some star power, and make it, again, authentic. If you make it with Julia Roberts and whoever else, or with Reese Witherspoon or whoever, so no slight to them, but you bring something to the table. When you see it, you've seen them do this kind of a thing in something else, and it might cloud your judgment. Whereas this, to me, always felt like, oh, this is very sort of fresh and feels legitimate. So I like that.
So Fox Searchlight options it, and take us sort of on the ride. Go ahead, you can take a drink.
No, was that me?
Yeah, that you said. Take us on the ride from selling it, them hiring a director, hiring actors, and, you know, at this point it's no longer your movie.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell us about sort of, you know, letting go and how it evolved and how you sort of observed that as the writer.
Yeah, when you, they option it, and they have a year or maybe 2 years to put it together, to find a director and a cast, and you know, figure out that they want to get it moving. It doesn't get moving unless they find those things. So when they call me and they say, we met this director and we really like him and we want to hire him, I'm like, that's awesome. Like, we're getting closer to making a movie. But at the same time, it's like, as the screenwriter, you know, it's now his movie. Because the director is going to be running the show, and he can suggest changes that he wants to make. He can definitely take it in whatever direction he sees through his vision. And we got very lucky because the guy that they picked had the same kind of vision that we had. Everybody involved really had one vision, which is very rare and very cool. And he's a good guy, and it was his first movie, and he was very collaborative and wanted us involved, and we got very, very lucky. Because of how personal this sort of was to me, I could have been, you know, in trouble giving this up. But it ended up being the best situation.
So normally, you know, a writer sells his project. It's someone else's. They own it. You were involved. You were on set. All those things that sometimes writers don't do.
Or aren't allowed to do.
Yeah.
Which was great. I mean, we were allowed. The analogy I've used before is that it's sort of like you know, giving your kid up for adoption to the neighbor across the way. So, like, you see the kid all the time, but, like, you can't be involved in raising the kid. And occasionally they'll let you come over and, like, you know, play with it maybe, but it's not yours anymore. And in this case, it was, nobody ever took it away. It was really just, let's make the best movie we can make together, which is very cool.
And probably a tough experience to follow, and probably what doesn't happen normally.
It does not happen normally, and it may not happen, you know, ever again. I think, you know, a lot of times that's why writers say, I want to direct, which to this point, I think directing's hard. I have no interest right now in that, because what I saw was difficult, and I didn't feel cut out of the process.
So your first movie, you have all this input, control, you get to see it, it gets made to fulfill your vision, it doesn't deviate too far from your vision, how you originally wrote it.
Technically, it was our second movie, so.
And the first movie, let's talk about that, because another you know, comparable project. What was the other movie going on?
Based on this script, a visionary executive hired us to write the sequel to the Pink Panther movie. Sort of the same kind of thing, I guess. And at the time, 500 had been sitting around. Nobody wanted anything to do with it, and we were told, you know, don't be all whatever. Like, you know, if you want to have a career at this, like, take it seriously, listen to what they have to say, and you know, give it a shot. And we sort of, they said, come up with an idea. We came up with an idea. They said, no, that's too smart. Come up with another idea. we came up with another idea, and they were like, go. And we were like, okay, we're being paid to write, which we hadn't been ever. So that's really cool. And they ended up, making the movie. They brought other writers on to do their thing, so the finished result was not recognizable to me. But it was still like a great experience, and the hardest thing in the world for writers is to get a movie made, because it's really the most expensive, form of expression that there is. It's, $7 million is kind of still pretty expensive when you think about it. And so they made the Pink Panther movie based on our script, and that makes people think we could, every time you get a movie made, they're willing to open that door a little bit larger for you, and you're a little less of a risk. So we have 2 produced credits, which is cool, because, a lot of people don't.
Yeah. So in 1 year, you have 2 movies, very different, coming out, and you contrasted them. You had much less control in
We were invited to that set one time for an hour, and then they escorted us out. And it was a scene we didn't write or recognize in any way. And it was in Boston, pretending to be Paris, which was weird. But other than that, it was a great experience for us.